We are Aldea, a spiritual community for people of all kinds of faith backgrounds, or those who don't have any experience with spirituality or religion. And what connects us are values like love and open-mindedness, rather than doctrine or dogma. Our ability to create this inclusive and welcoming space is made possible through donations from people just like you. So whether you join us regularly in person or you tune into our messages from all over the place, if you enjoy what we're up to, we would so appreciate it if you'd consider giving to Aldea, whether it's a one-time gift or setting up a recurring donation. You can find more information on how to give in the description of today's episode. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy today's message. So if you're just joining us, or if you're just joining us online, earlier in this service, we were given this opportunity and this invitation to think about the people, the experiences, the moments that acted like guides for us. And maybe as we continue on today, you might still hold those things in your heart. And during this week, as I was thinking about this message, I had a guide that was brought to mind from earlier in my life. When I was about 11 or 12, I had a kung fu instructor named Bill. And you're probably looking at me thinking, yeah, Jake, we always assumed you had a martial arts background. That's obvious by looking at you. Thank you. And Bill was in his 70s when I learned kung fu from him. But he was also trapped in the 1970s a little bit, but I loved him for it. He's a white guy, but he had an afro. I don't know how he pulled that off, what kind of perm that you need to do that. But you would never make fun of his afro because Bill could, even in his mid-70s, he could seriously kick some butt. And he was a master of his art. And yet what he taught me is that sure, when you become a master at something, sure, you can just focus on making yourself great, showing how strong you are. But the thing that I loved about Bill is that his goal was to make others feel strong, to see other people excel. And so he was one of those examples in my life about what being a guide can be. If you're just joining us as a part of this series is called The Hero's Journey, and the hero's journey is a universal journey that we all go on at some point in our lives. But even more than that, it is reflected through all kinds of stories and myth throughout humanity and the things that we as humans have come up with. And really, this journey is about the movement from the known into the unknown. And it's a journey that we go on again and again in our lives. And in this journey, you and I, we are the heroes, meaning this is our journey to take. But we're not alone. There will be help. And that is where the guide comes in. The guide is that person that shows up on your journey to assist you. And they're a person that has gone on their own journey. A great example of this in fiction is Obi-Wan Kenobi. He shows up to guide Luke Skywalker on his journey. But a reason that he's also a great example of a guide is if you've seen the prequels that came out for Star Wars, they show Obi-Wan as a young person going on his own hero's journey. And in his hero's journey, he has a guide. So this process just keeps continuing over and over again. The only thing is you wouldn't want to make the mistake that this woman made. Mom, that's not a picture of Jesus. I've seen many memes of people mistaking Ewan McGregor for Jesus, and so don't want to do that. But the thing about the guide is that the guide can truly speak of the territory that they are showing you. They can truly put their money where their mouth is because they understand the journey having walked through it themselves. When I was in just starting out in ministry, I had a youth pastor who, at one point, he kind of sat down all the ministry leaders, and he said to us, I'll never forget what he said. He said, you can't hope to lead anyone to a place that you yourself have not already been. You cannot take anyone somewhere you have not already been. And what he was encouraging us to do was to remember to tend to our own spiritual lives, because if we were going to be spiritual leaders, then we couldn't expect to lead people into a spiritual experience that we haven't yet experienced ourselves. But it also made me think about what it would be like if you and I were on vacation and we went on a tour and the tour guide had never been to where they were trying to take you on a tour. They're like, this, I think this is the Mona Lisa. They're looking at their phone, It's like that, we'd want their money back, right? And what our world needs is people who have gone on their journeys, people like you and me who have been true to our own life journey so that we can then turn around and be guides to others. And this is why we're turning our attention today to this process of becoming the guide ourselves. And I just want to start by asking you, where in your life are you positioned to help others, to guide others, to assist others in their journeys? See, at some point or another, our own hero's journey will become about more than just our individual growth. It will transcend our own journey and start to include other people. The author Donald Miller wrote a book about the hero's journey called Hero on a Mission. But even in the book, he states how really everything is pointing towards that eventual invitation for you and I to become guides. He says this: in a way, this book has been deceptive. It has taught you to become a hero on a mission, even though the hero is not the most evolved role. The most aspirational role for any of us is the role of guide. So why spend so much time teaching people to live as heroes when the goal of life is to become the guide? The reason is, of course, that we cannot become guides unless we have lived as heroes on a mission. And I think the same is true of this series, that in a way, even though we've been talking about the hero's journey, it's all leading up to this eventual transition we will make into becoming the guide. But why is it that being the guide is the most aspirational? And so there are three kind of points I want to walk us through today. First, I believe that becoming the guide is the natural progression of our hero's journey, that this is an important stage. Secondly, when we don't become a guide, when we're being called to, it actually inhibits our growth. It inhibits our impact. There's a cost to refusing this call. And third, I believe that our world needs more initiated guides. And what I mean and why I use the word initiated is that I think the world has plenty of people that want to be guides or think they are guides, but to have truly walked on your own hero's journey and then sharing that wisdom with others is a process of initiation. So let's start with that first idea that becoming a guide is the natural progression of our journey. In this room, you might be someone who's on your hero's journey and you're looking ahead to a time in your life where you might have more opportunities to be a guide for others, or you might be someone where you're looking back at the last 25, even 50 years of your life, recognizing that you've already been in that role. And wherever you're at in life, we can all attest to the fact that our life journey includes the act of assisting others on theirs. At the end of last week's message, we talked about how upon completion of your hero's journey, you are now the master of two worlds, meaning you can navigate the different steps on the hero's journey with more ease. You can cross over from the known into the unknown with more confidence because of the journey that you have been through. And with this ability, I think, often comes a desire and a capacity to help other people navigate that same type of passage. See, I believe that a key virtue of a guide is that of compassion, that you know how difficult it can be to walk the path of life, to make some of these steps. And so there's a compassion and an empathy that develops for other people to help them along the way. And maybe, in some sense, the areas of life and the areas of the journey that were the most difficult for you become the areas that are the most rewarding to help others. So maybe for you, you've seen some incredible highs and incredible lows when it comes to parenthood, but you're also probably a person that holds great wisdom and people come to advice. Or maybe in your career, you've experienced some serious ups and downs, but it's also given you a confidence and an ability to share some wisdom with other people. There's this quote that I love that basically says that all mystics walk with a limp. And it's basically to say that when you encounter someone with a spiritual depth, they probably also have a bit of suffering. They probably also have some wounding that has been a part of their journey. And they are not mystics. They're not deep in spite of the fact that they are wounded, but because of the wounding, the pain has actually guided them into a deeper place. This is this term that we often hear, the wounded healer. That when we're given these opportunities to be a source of, guidance, leadership, healing for others, we don't do it in spite of our pain, but we often do it because our pain has given us an opportunity to see things, maybe to overcome things that we can share with other people. I think there's this interesting dynamic. Sometimes people look at, someone in like a place of spiritual leadership or a pastor, and they imagine that that person is in that role because they don't have anxiety, they don't have doubts. And I think that's a hilarious idea, because I know for me, I feel like I'm up here because I have anxiety, because I have depression, because I have doubts. And I feel so fortunate that I've been guided along the way to go on my own journey, to learn some tools, and then to come and share those tools in community. The world to a guide is larger than themselves and their personal story. Guides care. As we surface guide energy, helping others win, we find a deeper and deeper experience of meaning. It is in us all to become guides. So yes, it's a natural progression of our hero's journey, but also, if we resist that call, I think that there is some kind of deep cost. See, what tends to happen is we go on our journeys of life, we develop insight, we develop experience and wisdom. And I think the misstep that we often make is that we kind of pour that wisdom and that insight back into ourselves. We keep just going on our journeys, not thinking about how we can help others, and ultimately that process will have diminishing returns. That a cup must be emptied in order to be filled again. We want to be rivers rather than ponds. And both of these metaphors really are about stagnation. And see, I think often stagnation can be a form of unhealth. And stagnation happens when we are given a gift and then we don't turn around and give that gift back out. At a certain point, we are going to be more effective as guides than purely as the heroes of our own story. Now, it doesn't mean that you stop being the hero. We, on some level, will always be the hero. But if we don't take up that mantle of being a guide, we're missing out on something. And I wonder if that's something that you felt at different points in your life, where you feel like, I've done certain aspects of my journey, I've accomplished some amazing things, and now I feel like there's something missing, there's something more. And maybe you went through this experience of realizing that that next step for you was to then pour back out to others. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to quickly let you know about an easy and free way that you can support Aldea. Did you know that between our YouTube and Apple Podcast channel, our online audience is often 2 to 3 times the size of our in-person audience? Not only do we value our online community, but we recognize how powerful it can be in spreading our message of love, period. So, how can you help? Like our videos, leave a comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our podcast, leave a positive review. All of these things go a really long way in increasing our visibility and help to get our messages out into the world. So we thank you for your help. All right, let's get back to the message. I was recently talking to my friend Dan Roberts, who's here today, and sorry, he's shy, and so I was like, let's make this more awkward than it needs to be. Sorry. We had this really great conversation. I love talking to people who have gone through the journey of life, and I'm so privileged to just have these wonderful open conversations. He was sharing with me how he'd been a lawyer he'd practiced law for 25 years, and then after practicing law, he decided to be a coach for lawyers, but that in that transition of becoming more of the guide, he actually learned more than he had even during the process of practicing law, that he emptied his cup and he actually found that it was filled in new ways, that he grew. It wasn't just about serving others, but that he also grew and developed in ways from transitioning into being the guide. And I think this is so in line with what we even understand neurologically, that we learn the best from teaching. That yes, we can learn through all these different modalities, but the most effective way for us to learn any truth in life is to share it. And that's why I feel like I'm so privileged to come up here and have these conversations with you, because just everything that we're talking about, I'm also learning and relearning over and over again. So this is a space that we hold together. There will be times in our lives where we will realize that we are more effective as a guide than just as a hero. That's something that even the author Donald Miller, who I've been quoting, he learned. He was just an author for many years of his life, and then at a certain point he transitioned and he started this marketing company called StoryBrand. And what this company basically does is it comes alongside different organizations and it really helps them implement this very important truth, that if you're a leader, if you own some kind of business, or just in any workplace environment, that you are the guide and your clients or customers are the hero. And it's a very important distinction that a lot of businesses have yet to make, because a lot of times organizations, they're pitting themselves as the hero. Look how great our organization is, rather than positioning themselves as a guide. Look how we can help you accomplish your life journey. And so some of the best organizations and leaders have really internalized this idea of becoming the guide. And one of my favorite examples of this is Apple. Now, I want to be clear. If you have a broken Apple device, going to the Apple store is the worst nightmare. It's a miserable experience. I'd rather spend time at the DMV than at the Apple store if I have a broken iPhone. But if you're actually going to purchase an Apple product, it's a really great experience, because Apple understands something, that they are the guide and that the customer is the hero. And so what tends to happen, if you go to the Apple store, what they're not going to do is they're not going to try to sell you on how amazing their computer is. They're not going to say, oh, it's so fast and has this much storage. No, what they're going to do is they're going to ask you what you are interested in, whether it be, video editing or music, or maybe you're going to be using this computer for your job. They ask you how this device will serve you, and then they show you all the ways that this product is going to help you out, that you are the hero and that they are coming alongside you as the guide. And this is one of the reasons why they have been so effective. This is a transition that many of us learn in different points in our lives. Maybe when you became a parent, you realized, okay, it's no longer just about me. I am now a guide, and my child, they're the hero. It's their turn, and how can I help them and support them? Maybe you were promoted at your job, and you all of a sudden became responsible for the journey of all these people, and you realized, I need to show up for them and help them win, help them succeed. It's no longer just about me. And the problem is, if we don't step into this role when it's being called, when we're being asked to, then I think that we're resisting life. We're resisting our own journey. And we see what happens when people resist. There's something called founder syndrome. And in various organizations, you have people who found an organization, and then sometimes that person has a hard time letting go of being the hero. And so what founder syndrome is if that person has a hard time transitioning into the guide, if they want to hold on to that power and hold on to the responsibility, then they stop empowering other people to be leaders and to be guides. And we probably all witnessed in the world versions of this. And we all even have moments like this where it's hard to let go of purely being the hero. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, but there's this character, Uncle Rico. And if you haven't seen this movie, Uncle Rico shows up pretty early on, and he he essentially wants to be sort of like a mentor figure to the characters in the movie, but he also is still holding on to his past and his dreams of becoming a professional football player. And he keeps looking back in the past and thinking, man, if things would have just gone a little differently, my life could have turned out so different. And so he's holding on to this idea of himself as the hero, and because of that, he's not able to fully walk into his role as the guide. We also know that there are people who are given guide-type roles that maybe take advantage or abuse their power. And so there are all these versions of what can happen if there is an unhealthy expression of the guide, which is why what we need and what our world needs is more initiated guides, more guides who have truly gone on that hero's journey themselves. Anyone can try to be a guide or a leader. Anyone can be told, oh, you're ready for this. I know I experienced that. When I was just graduated out of high school, I was then asked to be a leader in the high school ministry. And I look back and I go, I was 19 years old. What did I know that any of these 18-year-olds didn't know? You know, I was definitely not ready or worthy of that. But this happens in churches all over the place. But to be truly initiated, to be truly ready for your guide role is to have truly gone through the fire of life yourself, to have truly walked the path. And if you want to look at those who can truly attest to that journey, who can truly say that they've earned that, the best place to look is people who are the elders in our world. And yet, unfortunately, our modern society does not prize and value the wisdom of elders as much as, say, indigenous communities or those in the East. In those places where the elder of the community is seen as the one who is the keeper of wisdom. And I love kind of the indigenous definition of an elder. Not all older or elderly people are considered elders. An elder is a person that has accumulated a great deal of wisdom and knowledge throughout his or her lifetime, especially in the tradition and customs of the group. This comes from the Sacred Circle Project, which comes from the First Nations. So the elders are the ones who are the wisdom keeper in a society, not the politicians, not the celebrities, not the most wealthy, not the most powerful, but the most wise. We live in a world right now where there is a job called being an influencer, and supposedly these people have a lot of influence. And yet if you look at who they actually are, they tend not to be the wisdom keepers of society. I'll leave it at that. This is why I think for so many of us, we're drawn to the spiritual traditions, because they provide an alternative to society's idea of what wisdom is. In the spiritual traditions, there is this deep value of wisdom that comes from life experience, wisdom that comes from going on the journey and supporting others on the journey. And when I look at figures like Jesus and Buddha, what I see, especially in the context of what we're talking about today, what I see are compassionate guides. Those who look upon humanity, who recognize how difficult it can be to walk the path of life, and who share their wisdom with compassion, with wanting to see other people succeed. And there's a great example of this in one of the most famous holy texts of the Hindu tradition, the Bhagavad Gita. This text is written in the form of a conversation between two figures, Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is the hero and Krishna is the guide, and Krishna is also a manifestation of God. And in this conversation, there's so much great wisdom for life that is shared. And one of the overarching themes of this whole book is for us as the hero to fully live out the journey that you and I are uniquely called to. In chapter 18, verse 47, it says, "It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection." Now, the Bhagavad Gita has inspired many different stories, but one that I recently found out was inspired by the Bhagavad Gita is a movie and a book from the late 90s, early 2000s called The Legend of Bagger Vance. Does anyone remember this? It's a golf story. And the author of the book Stephen Mitchell, he was very inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna, another name for Krishna is Bhagavan, which is how you get the word Bhagavad Gita, but it's also how he got the name Bagger Vance, Bhagavan Bagger Vance. And his story is really a retelling of many of the themes of the Bhagavad Gita, but through the lens of golf. And this book is about a character. So this is Matt Damon's character named Juna, who is a golfer, but is also a war hero, and it has some PTSD and trauma from his experiences, and it's inhibiting his ability to then come back and play his favorite game of golf. And then in comes Bagger Vance, Will Smith's character, who acts as his guide and reminds him that there is a game that only he is meant to play. And this is where this clip comes from.
You gonna be wanting a different club there, Juna?
I can't do this.
Hey, you might should just loose your grip up a smidge. You know, a man's grip on his club just like a
It's
man's
not what I'm
grip on...
talking about.
I know.
No, you don't.
What I'm talking about is a game. Game that can't be won, only played.
You don't understand.
I don't need to understand. And a soul on this entire earth ain't got a burden to carry he don't understand. You ain't alone in that. But you've been carrying this one long enough. Time to go on, lay it down.
I don't know how.
You got a choice. You can stop, or you can start.
Start?
Walking
Where?
right back to where you always been, and then stand there. Still. Real still. And remember.
It's too long ago.
Oh no, sir, it was just a moment ago. Time for you to come on out the shadows, Juna. Time for you to choose.
I can't.
Yes, you can. But you ain't alone. I'm right here with you. I've been here all along. Now play the game. Your game. The one that only you was meant to play. The one that was given to you when you come into this world.
I think this is such a beautiful picture of the role of the guide. See, the hero's journey and really life, it's that game that isn't about winning or losing. It's about playing. It's about showing up. And yet so often in life, for various reasons, we don't play at all. We don't show up. We don't really live. And the guide is there to remind us, to give us that push. They empathize. They understand how difficult it can be. But ultimately, they are there to show us that we have a unique path through life, and it's up to us to step up to it. And if we've had the opportunity and the gift of someone doing that for us, and we've moved through that journey ourselves, then what a beautiful transition it can be to be that for other people. I think if we were to sum the hero's journey down to its simplest form, it's this: become who you are meant to become and help others do the same. Become who you are meant to become and help others do the same. And I want to finish with this quote from Khalil Gibran: "The teacher who is indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of their wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your mind." We all have the capacity to be teachers, healers, guides, and the world needs us to step into those roles. But I want to remind you that when we do that, it's not about showing other people how capable we are, how wise we are. It's about holding space for other people to recognize their own wisdom, their own capability, their own strength. So, Aldea, as you live out your hero's journey, would you remember that is eventually a call for you to transform into the guide? Would you become who you're meant to become and help others to do the same? And in that work, would we be led by compassion? And would we be led by a desire to see others live out their destiny, knowing that we've been empowered to do the same?